all, this is Spencer Dunlap of Bodhi Surf and Yoga in Bahia Ballena, Costa Rica, and today we're going to be talking about how to properly enter the ocean for your first surf session and also how to catch waves in the prone position. One thing we like to do with our students here during our week-long surf camps is before they ever enter the ocean with a surfboard, we'll actually have them go and do what we call a face-down floating drill. So we'll just walk our students out into the ocean, no board, no nothing, just their bodies, and have them lay down, take a deep breath, and when their head is submerged in shallow water, we're cueing them to listen to the oncoming waves. And what that does is two things. Not only does it help that student relax, right? That's the main point, get the student comfortable in the ocean, but it also makes them more aware of what it sounds like to have a wave approaching you. Because a lot of times when our students fall, which occurs quite frequently during our first lesson, they come up and they're a little bit frazzled, they just came out of the washing machine and they're disoriented. So by teaching them, training them how to listen to the waves rushing over their heads, listen to those waves approaching, that just makes them a little bit more aware and confident in the ocean. So the next step after the face down floating drill is to then enter the ocean with our equipment, with our surfboard and our leash. So the students will exit the water, they'll walk up and grab their surfboards from the beach. They won't attach their leash yet until they get down to the water's edge. So go grab your board, wrap up the leash like we showed you in the first video of this series, and then you're gonna walk your board down to the water's edge, flip your board down, deck side should be on the sand, fins up out of the sand, and then you can put your leash on there. The reason why we don't want you to attach your leash too early when you still have a long walk to get down to the water's edge is just because it increases your likelihood of tripping and falling and potentially landing on your board, injuring yourself, breaking your board, right? So we just want to coil that leash up, carry our board down, and then once we're at the water's edge, that's when we can attach our ankle leash. All right, so how to attach your ankle leash. For right now, we're not gonna worry about which ankle to attach the leash to. We'll cover that in the next video when we also talk about standing on the surfboard. But today, we're just talking about entering the ocean and riding the board in the prone position. So it really doesn't matter what ankle you choose. For me, because I am a veteran surfer, I already know which way I stand on the board. I am a regular footer, which means my left foot is in front and my right foot is in back. So I'm going to attach my ankle leash to my back ankle, which is my right ankle in this case. So I'll completely unvelcro the ankle strap. I'm going to take this swivel and make sure it is out over my ankle bone. Okay, and then I'll attach this ankle leash, do up the Velcro, make sure it's nice and snug. Okay, you don't want it so tight that it's uncomfortable, but you definitely don't want this swivel moving around, okay? So the swivel can either go out over the ankle bone like this, or it can go behind your heel like this. But what we definitely do not want is for that swivel to be on the inside or in the front. The reason for that is when eventually you do get to standing on your board, if that swivel is in front, you could potentially trip on your ankle leash, right, and get tangled in it. When you start to walk into the water, if you're in California or Costa Rica or somewhere with warm water, you want to make sure you avoid the chance of stepping on a stingray. So it's always a good idea, whether it be a stingray or coral or rock or something, just shuffle your feet when you enter the water, okay? If you run out into the water with your surfboard, you could potentially step right on the back of a stingray, and that's when you get stung. But if you shuffle, then those stingrays are just gonna swim away from you. So slowly enter the water, make sure you're shuffling your feet. You're gonna walk out into knee-deep water, at least, before you set your board down, okay? I don't want you putting your board down in shallow water because then you could potentially damage the fins on the back and get stuck, right? So walk your board out until you're deep enough, and then go ahead and set your board down. Because I am right-handed, I always keep the board on my right side. That's because when I'm guiding the board out, I want my dominant hand to be in the back, right above where the fins are, and then my off hand, my left hand, somewhere towards the middle of the board. It's very important as a beginner that you enter the ocean by guiding your board out through the waves. You're not paddling out because you're simply not ready for that yet, okay? You don't know how to get through or over breaking waves, so it's always a good idea to start by just walking your board out and starting to catch some whitewater waves on the inside. Eventually we'll get to paddling out, and I'll give you some techniques for how to do that. But for today, your first time entering the ocean with a surfboard, you're just guiding your board out through the wave zone. So as a beginner, you're going to want to start catching waves in chest deep water. You're not going out any deeper than that. Okay, so we need to get our board from knee deep water to chest deep water. We're guiding the board out through these oncoming walls of whitewater, so we need to have firm control of our board. So you're gonna place your dominant hand, which for me is my right hand, on the back, my left hand in the middle, right behind this handle here, okay? And I'm walking my board out towards these oncoming walls of water. Okay, as these waves approach, all I'm gonna do is put some pressure on my back hand, lift up the nose of the board, and go right over the top of that wave. Make sure you stay nice and firm, good athletic stance in your legs so that you can absorb the power of the waves pushing you backwards. And I just continue walking, hands firmly placed on the board. I'm guiding that board out to deeper water. If you have a wave that is going to break right on top of you, or it's a bigger wall of whitewater, you might want to use a different technique, which I call the spear. So my hands are firmly placed on the board, I sink low in my legs, and then I just push the nose of my board. I puncture the face of that wave. So I just push right through. I'm not trying to go over, because if I try and go over, that board might come back at me, so I'm just pushing through. That's what we call the spear technique. It's really important that for bigger waves, this hand, this off hand, is somewhere at the center of the board, so that if that nose comes back at you, right, the wave takes the board out of your hands, that you can at least protect your face, right? So if the board's coming at you, boom, I'm in a nice defensive position and I can get out of the way. So once you get out into chest deep water, you're gonna start looking for a wave to catch, all right? So you're facing these oncoming breaking waves. What you want is a big wave that has broken far out away from you, so that by the time it gets to you and you're ready to turn around and start paddling to catch that wave, it's just a nice, clean, straight wall of whitewater, all right? We're gonna start by catching whitewater waves. We're not worried about green or unbroken waves, so we're looking for a wave that is way out past us. By the time it gets to us, just a nice, clean wall. Once we identify that wave, you want to give yourself enough time to turn your board fully around, get on the board, and start paddling. So what we recommend for our students is to start turning the board when that wave is still about 3 board lengths away from you, okay? That's about 30 feet, 10 yards, right? So give yourself lots of time to turn the board around. When you've identified the wave you want to catch, how do we turn the board around? The best way to do it is to lift up the nose so we create a pivot point on the tail so that that board turns around easier, right? If we keep that nose flat, it's going to take us much longer to turn the board around, as opposed to if we create that pivot point, boom, we can just turn that thing around quickly. It's really important that when you turn your board around, you turn it fully around all the way so the nose is facing the beach. You want to match the angle of that wave that's coming in towards you, right? So fully turn the board around. If you don't get fully turned around, that wave is going to hit you, flip your board, and you're going to go into the washing machine. So another thing about turning your board around, you never want to put your board in between you and the wave. So because I'm standing on the left side of my board, I am always going to turn my board to the right. I'm turning it away from me, right? I'm putting my body between the board and the wave. If I were to turn this way to the left, look what happens. My board is right in front of me. Maybe I get caught in between. I freeze, the wave hits my board, and then my board hits me, right? So you want to avoid that. So if you're on the left side of the board, which means your right hand is your dominant hand and it's in the back, you're always going to turn this direction to the right. And then the opposite is true if you're on the other side of the board. So just to reiterate the timing one more time, the wave is about 10 yards away from you. You initiate your turn, create that pivot point, turn the board away from you. Don't put the board in between you and the wave. Turn it around. Now you're ready to get on the wave. So I want you to imagine that this curtain behind me, this back wall, is the wall of whitewater that's going to push me forward towards the beach. So I turn my board fully around, right? I'm not at an angle like this because once this wave hits me and I'm not fully perpendicular to it, it's going to flip the rails and knock me off, right? So my nose is straight, pointed towards the beach. The wall of whitewater is coming right behind me. Now I'm ready to get on. I need to get on my board, give myself enough time to take a couple paddle strokes before that wave gets to me, right? So when you're ready to get on your board, I want you to take a step forward towards the middle of the board, the center. What that does is that creates a little bit of momentum moving forward to help you create that momentum that you need in order to catch the wave when you're paddling, right? So I take a step forward, just like if I'm getting on a bike, right? You create some momentum before you hop on. Take a step forward. The other thing that does is it puts me in the proper position to then mount my board from a prone position, which is lying flat on my stomach, right? So I'm forward. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my rails, right hand on the right rail, left hand on the left rail, and then I'm going to pull my chest down to the deck of the board, okay? So chest goes on first, and then I bring my feet on. Chest on first, feet on next, okay? You want to make sure you're in a good position to paddle on the board. So you don't want to be too far forward and you don't want to be too far back. A good indicator that we like to use, we tell our students to put your toes right at the tail of the board where your leash is attached. Okay, so you want to be feeling for that leash at least your first couple of waves to make sure you're in the right position. Okay, if you're too far forward, when you go to catch this wave, the nose of the board is going to dive, it's going to take on water, and you're going to flip. Okay, if you're too far back, the nose will be up out of the water and you're never going to catch the wave in the first place, right? That nose of the board has to be flat on the surface of the water in order for you to catch the wave. So my toes are right at the end of the board. So your next step is to make sure you are nice and balanced on the board. So you want to make sure your hips are right along the stringer, the center line of the board. So my hips aren't offset. They're not over the left rail. They're not over the right rail. I'm squeezing my feet together. I'm squeezing my butt. My abs are turned on. My chest is up, and I'm right in the center of the board. My toes are at the end. My hands right by the rails, okay? So now that I'm nice and comfortable on this board, I'm in a good position, I feel balanced, I need to check in with the wave. So I check in with the wave. Okay, now I'm ready to start paddling. The reason we keep our chest up while we're paddling is so we can maintain this nice cobra position and have our eyes facing forward. If our chest and head are down, we have no vision, we have no awareness of what's going on around us. So in basketball, we like to use the term head on a swivel, right? So my chest is up, my eyes are up, and my head is on a swivel, so I can look from side to side. I can see things in my peripheral vision, and I can also check in on the wave that's still coming behind me, right? One issue that we have with some of our beginner students is they start paddling, they're really aggressive when they paddle because they want to catch that wave, but they forget to see where the wave is. it takes them by surprise, knocks them off their board, right? So keep your head on a swivel. Just like in basketball, if you're in a defensive stance, you need to watch the ball, you need to watch the player that you're defending. Okay, so my chest is up, vision is forward, now I'm ready to paddle. I'm gonna start one arm at a time, right? I don't wanna see this action, right? Never do that where you're paddling with two arms. One arm at a time. Okay, so paddling technique. We're gonna have an entire video dedicated to paddling technique, but I just wanna give you some basics so that you at least know what you're doing the first time you're in the water, right? So when I'm reaching out to take a stroke, I need to make sure I fully extend my arm. My hand is cupped, okay? My fingers aren't spread out like this. Hand is cupped, and I'm submerging my entire forearm underwater, okay? All the way to the bicep. One issue I see with beginners paddling is they just want to flick at the surface of the water. You're not going to be able to cover much distance doing that, right? So entire forearm underwater, my hand is cupped, it's right by the rail of the board, okay? I take a stroke all the way until my hand is in line with my hip, and then the hand exits the water, okay? My other arm comes forward, fully extends, hand cupped right by the rail, boom, at the hip it exits, okay? I'm not flicking water out the back, just nice clean exit, other arm reaches forward. I like to count in my head sometimes, 1, 2, 1, 2. Chest is up, vision is forward, boom, here we are, we're paddling. One tip we like to use, a cue for our students, is to smile while you paddle. What smiling does is it helps you relax and it brings you into the moment, right? So I'm smiling, it can be a fake, cheesy smile, no problem, but I'm not frowning, I'm not too serious. Smile while you paddle. We need to continue to check in with the wave while we're paddling, so we know when to stop paddling and bring our hands onto the deck of the board so that we can ride that wave. Once we've caught it, we're riding in the prone position, all right? So as the wave approaches, check in, okay? I'm not overexerting myself, right? Nice, smooth paddles, counting in my head, 1, 2, check in with the wave. Once that wall of white water hits the tail of your board, it's gonna start to push you forward. What you need to try and do is match the momentum of that oncoming wave, right? If you're not moving forward fast enough, that wave is gonna hit you and it's gonna jolt you, right? Because you're not matching the speed of that wave. So we got some nice momentum moving forward. The wave hits the tail of the board. So I take my last stroke and then my hands need to come in line with my chest, right on top of the deck of the board. Looks like a cobra position in yoga, right? Okay, so I'm not grabbing the rails of the board. This is very important cue. My hands are nice and flat. The reason we don't want to grab the rails is because what tends to happen when we lift our chest up is that we put more pressure on one rail than the other. That rail catches and flips us over, right? So my hands are nice and flat. As soon as I feel that momentum of the wave pushing my board forward, I need to lift my chest up to get the nose up out of the water so I don't nosedive. That's the very first thing you do. So you catch the wave, hands in line with your chest, and then lift up. My hips go into the board. I'm in a nice tall cobra position, and I'm just riding that whitewater wave straight to the beach, okay? If I start to slow down, which will happen because I have more weight towards the tail, which is where your brakes are, okay? Instead of over the nose, which is where your gas is, right? So I have a lot of weight towards the tail. I'm gonna slow down in order to speed back up again. What do you think I'm gonna do? Simple, just bring my chest down. So as you're moving forward towards the beach, you're riding this whitewater wave, just like you're boogie boarding, right? You're just in a prone position. You're not worried about standing. You're gonna have this little back and forth, speeding up, slowing down. So slow down, chest up, speed up, chest down, okay? Once you get in to shallow water, your ride is over, okay? Because you don't wanna run all the way into the sand, you're gonna damage those fins. So you need to stop before that happens. Once your ride is over, you need to control your board. You're not just falling into the water, you're not falling off your board. That's not how we stop. We're just gonna push back into child's pose. So this is why we teach surf and yoga, because the two practices go really well together. So child's pose puts all my weight over the tail of the board, that nose lifts up, and my board stops moving forward, okay? I come back to a tabletop position, I hop off my board, I put my right hand over the tail, left hand right towards the center of the board, turn my board around, and I guide it back out to catch another wave. I want you to repeat this process 3 to 5 times, where you're literally just walking your board out, turning around, catching a wave, riding that wave in the prone position straight to shore, and then bringing your board to a stop. Just to get used to that feeling of catching and riding a wave and maintaining control of your surfboard, okay? That's the first thing we're gonna work on.